Hey, it's Trail over at GOHUNT. Today we want to do a quick tutorial on using topo maps, which is part of your GOHUNT Insider mapping platform to find elk. So kind of what are the features that you're looking for when you look at a topo map to kind of help you decide where to hunt and ultimately where you're going to find elk during hunting season. So I've got my map pulled up here. I've got the topo layer applied. So I'm thinking about elk, and specifically when I'm thinking about looking at topo maps, and using those to help me find elk, I typically look for like three things when I'm looking at a topo map. First and foremost, I'm often looking at water. When you pull up a topo map, as you can see here on the screen, water is easily identifiable on a topo map. And sometimes it takes ground truthing those, and sometimes it takes looking at the individual streams themselves to see, whether they're perennial or, whether they're kind of seasonal. But it's easily identifiable to find streams and drainages when using a topo map, and that's one of the first things that I use. So as you can see here, as I scan around the map, you can see how those streams and those drainages really pop up. They make it very apparent to where that water is on the landscape. Water is extremely important to elk. They have to water every single day. Me as a bow hunter, and you're looking at that August, September time frame, it becomes very important because it's the hottest part of the year, and those elk have got to hit water every single day. One of the second things I use a topo map often for is to identify travel corridors. So I'm looking at things like saddles and benches. That's another feature when using a topo map that's very easy to identify. It's very easy to see those travel corridors. So as I look here across the landscape, I'm looking for saddles, so those connection points between two drainages. You got to think about escape routes. So if an elk herd gets bumped out of a drainage, where are they going to go up and over into another drainage? Or if they're feeding on one slope, they're going to move up and over into bedding timber. They're going to pass through a saddle. They're not going to go up through the highest point typically. Another reason I like topo maps is because it's easy to identify benches and feeding areas. So as you look here across the landscape, you can use those contour lines to pick out those areas that are more benched out, those flat areas where you're going to have feeding areas or bedding areas. Elk like to find those little pockets where it's a nice flat shady bench where they can bed up for the afternoon. Also, typically those benches will have seeps or springs on them, which makes a great ambush point for a wallow. So those are three reasons I use topo maps. One, identify water very easily using a topo. Two, super easy to see travel corridors by identifying the saddles, those pinch points between two drainages. And then three, it's really nice to find benches and flat spots, both for elk bedding areas, feeding areas, and also for camping. Above and beyond using a topo map or even the aerial imagery, we have this really cool tool in our GOHUNT mapping platform called terrain analysis. And this is where you can really fine-tune your search and drill down into specific areas. This tool is great for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to run through and specifically address how I use it to help find elk, primarily, like I said, in that September timeframe when I'm hunting with my bow. So I'm going to run over here, click the terrain analysis tool. You can see here at the top, I can turn that thing on and off. I've got it turned on. Down here, I've got an elevation band. So this is great. You can highlight the elevation band. So in any given unit, I know that in September time frame, I'm primarily interested in that 8,000 to maybe even 11,500 range. You get above and beyond that, you're going to be up into the alpine. There's really no timber. So the reason I have that range highlighted is because that's the primary range where elk are going to be that time of year in the summer. If I was looking at winter range, I might want to look from 6,500 to maybe 9,500 feet. Snow is going to push those down, so I know that. That summer time frame, July, August, September, and as those bulls start to gather cows and rut, I know that for me, in most units that I'm hunting elk, which are your traditional elk habitats, pine, conifer, aspen, and kind of that intermixed range, I'm primarily interested in that 8,000 to maybe 11,500 foot range because that's primarily where the elk are that time of year. So the second tool that I would like to highlight is this slope. So I can highlight the degree of the slope that I want to look at. If you think about elk, I might want to look at 0 to 5 degrees for those flats and those benches. Those are going to be good bedding areas. A little bench up on a north-facing slope would be a great spot to find a bedding area. 5 to 15 degrees, same kind of idea. And then, you start looking at maybe escape range. You might get into some steeper stuff where they're starting to move up and away from pressure. So this little slope tool is pretty handy. I'm just going to leave all of them highlighted at first, just to kind of show you how it works. And then next, I'm going to start exploring the aspects. So that's the face. So as I click these aspects, it's going to show me the direction that the physical slope on the ground is going to be facing. So if I highlight north, northwest, and then potentially this flat layer here, it's going to highlight on the map those areas that on the ground are physically north or northwest facing or flat. The reason I'm interested in those types of areas on a landscape when I'm hunting elk during archery season is because those are my big timbered areas. That's those big north-facing shady slopes that an elk is likely to be during the day to bed. I want to know where those areas are, and then I want to start to look at the landscape as it pertains to feeding areas. So anytime I can find a nice north-facing shady pocket next to feeding areas, I know that's likely to be an area that I'm going to find elk in. So I can use this terrain analysis tool, like I said, to start to explore those. So as you look here, as I tilt and pan this, you can really start to see where those north-facing pockets are. And then, like I said, those are going to be great bedding areas. So we've kind of touched on water and cover. Kind of the next aspect of that that's critical is feed. For me, the way I look at feed is I'm looking for open areas. So I may go over here and turn off the topographic layer and click on the satellite layer. That's going to show me the actual landscape, the aerial imagery. And from there, I'm going to start to zoom in and really pick the landscape apart. And really what I'm looking for, like I said, are these north-facing pockets, northwest-facing pockets for bedding areas in relation to water, and then also feed. And when I'm thinking about feed, I'm thinking about areas that are open, but not too open. A lot of edge type of habitat. So I've talked about that before, but really what you're looking for is a lot of mosaic. You're looking for that edge type of habitat. So when you've got those mosaics of forests and north-facing slopes along with open meadows, whether that's flat meadows or open slopes, those are going to be good areas for elk because they're going to gravitate to them because they've got quick escape cover for any kind of hunting pressure. So that's the things I'm thinking about. Like I said, I think I'm thinking about cover for bedding areas. I'm thinking about water, and I'm also thinking about how that relates to feed. And like I said, when I'm looking for feed, I'm looking for mosaics. I'm looking for open meadows in relation to bedding areas that's quickly accessible. So that's how you can use these tools to help you find elk. Once again, it really pays for you to dive in and learn some just life history and elk behavior. I would say that's probably one of the #1 tools in your toolkit once you head into the woods, is to understand where you should be finding elk, and then using that knowledge to then put that into maps and your research to help find those areas before you even get there. So couple things, learn elk behavior too, use the tools within your kit to really fine tune and help you find elk areas this fall. If you guys have any questions, drop them below. I'd be happy to answer those for you. I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe to our channel. Good luck this year in the elk woods.